Welcome back to this week's episode of Made for Mexico. TIM, this is Mexico, and I am Brent May. This is the show where we discover if you are made for Mexico. So welcome back, my beautiful wife, Erin. How you doing, Erin?
I'm fantastic.
You're fantastic. Excellent.
It's a good day.
Yeah, well, welcome back to the show. This week, we're going to be discussing how you can get around in Mexico without owning a vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah, so
fairly easily. Overall. Yeah. I often see our prospective buyers, they kind of have this fantasy, I call it the afterlife, the after work life, moving to Mexico, and they've commuted their whole lives, as you did, as I did. Sometimes an hour drive one way is common and normal. Mm-hmm. So when they think about their Mexico life, the after work life, a lot of people just never want to step foot or sit in a vehicle again. Maybe not even a taxi. They just, they want that kind of romantic feeling, the walkability and, yeah, and even our rental guests too. You know, people ask, like, from a rental perspective, like, we want a place where we can walk.
Yeah, I want to grab my wife's hand and walk in to dinner, enjoy a nice dinner, and walk back to our place afterwards.
Yeah.
And, you know, have that convenience. So walkability is definitely possible. And
definitely,
you know, in many different areas in Mexico, whether you're in a smaller community like Huatulco, mm-hmm. or even some of the larger centers like Mazatlan, where you live in a neighborhood, you can have that walkability, that mm-hmm. convenience. And of course, that cuts down on your costs.
Absolutely.
You don't have to afford a car. You don't have to afford insurance. So, and then just having that convenience. So, I just also like to maybe warn a little bit. Sometimes having walkability in your place, having that convenience can come with a little bit of noise.
Sure. Centrally located. Means noisy.
Yeah. Sometimes you might have a restaurant playing some music or something like that, but typically not too bad. And, you know, we love our noise in Mexico. But
even if you are in Huatulco speaking, even if you are in a community that's a little further from, you know, centrally located and a little quieter, the walk isn't generally that far. You know, we know a lot of owners or renters who have come down and they're in a place like Arrocito, for example, and they walk every day.
Yeah. Stop
at you know, maybe grab a coffee in Centro and then hang out and walk back. And they love doing that. And it's nothing to them.
What seems like maybe a long distance, that's not that bad at all. And
really,
you know, our 5-minute commutes in our vehicle, you know, people walk that all the time. And,
yeah.
And of course, you don't have to deal with all the snow, the cold weather. So walking isn't easy.
Yeah, it's nice to see when I drive to work in the morning to the office. It's so nice. Huatulco here has such nice paths, and they're full of bikers and walkers, and it's really nice to see in the morning. It's
definitely a lot of activity when it's a little cooler.
For sure.
People getting out
early in the morning
on the fitness side of things, but also just just getting out there, breathing in the fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to walk, Mexico has really feasible and affordable ways to get around if you don't have a car.
Right. Well, it's a little bit foreign to me, I'll say, because, you know, being a realtor, I've always had a vehicle. I have to transport people and get them around to the showings. But for quite some time down here, we didn't have two vehicles.
Yeah.
So you use public transportation a little bit more.
Yes.
So besides walking, what other options do people have?
Well, I think the number one would be taxis. They are plentiful. They're very affordable. They're easy to catch from each community in your area. Generally, they have different taxis and taxi colors by community or area in your town. Huatulco, for example, has different taxis for, Arrocito versus I don't know,
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz are orange.
Yeah, yeah.
And plentiful, but they're also very inexpensive.
Very. You'll never wait very long for a taxi. You'll be walking out to your vehicle and the taxi will beep at you and, see if you want to ride. So always really easy and probably the most popular way to get around for sure.
And between the communities, La Crucecita, Santa Cruz, Choway, you're about 45 pesos, I believe. So
yep. Well, they range maybe about 50 to about 100 pesos for the furthest that you're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing La Crucecita to Tangalunda, you might have 80 pesos. But most of the areas people travel, you're probably about 45 pesos on average, which is about $2.50 to $3.
Yeah.
So,
and rates are generally posted as well.
Right.
At the main taxi station as well as online. So it's very transparent. The rates are transparent and you know what you're going to get and what you're going to pay. It's always nice to ask, when you're going to jump in.
Yeah, I think it's good to ask just in case there's someone that might want to take advantage.
Sure.
Not saying that's common.
But it's nice to clarify. And then
good
you
to
have
clarify
change
before
too.
you get in as a general rule. And
a tip for that is keep small change. They don't generally like 500 peso bills.
Yeah.
So if you're here and, it's nice to keep your small changes.
Your 50 pesos and your 100 pesos. And I mean, just in general, a lot of people don't even realize coming to places like Mazatlan or Huatulco, Puerto Escondido, bring pesos. Don't bring US dollars.
Yeah.
Bring pesos because that's the currency of the country. That's what you'll be spending. And that's what we like is a more local feel to it all.
Yeah.
We're not coming to Mexico to spend US dollars.
Yeah. There are cool little taxis in Mazatlan that I remember taking when we first visited there. Pulmonias?
Oh yeah. They look like little kind of souped up golf carts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Talking about checking the price ahead of time. I just want to say the people in Mexico are so amazing. I have countless stories where someone left their wallet or they left their camera or their sunglasses in the back of a taxi. And that's why it's good to pay attention what color your taxi is, especially if you're tourists, you kind of are overwhelmed. Where did I go and come from? Because taxis have a rule. They can only pick you up in certain areas and drop you off in others. And other taxis can't go into different regions and pick people up. And the point being is, so many stories you see on the Facebook groups. Oh my God, I've left this and that. And they're like, oh, what color was your taxi? Call this location. And they get their stuff back.
It happened just last night. Greg left his cell phone. Yeah. And he was back within 5 minutes to the restaurant with the cell phone. And
he didn't even call. The guy actually saw it, the taxi driver, and came back, knew where he dropped off. Thankfully, they weren't walking around.
Yeah.
As our friend from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He
and I find too, people kind of will make contacts with local taxi drivers, and that's kind of their guy, and they'll prearrange pick up and drop off, and I know our family does that. They've got their guys, and they're good to them. So
both my brothers have had properties down here for years, and they've never had a vehicle, so they have their prearranged taxis.
Yeah.
From the airport is something else to consider. You can get an airport taxi, or you can get
very affordably
private driver, pick you up in a Suburban or something like that. Mm-hmm. So,
it's like a lot cheaper too. I think about 250 pesos to the airport. How much did it cost us?
Well, I'm thinking about when we lived in Cochrane, Alberta. We were about an hour 20 minutes maybe, depending, from the airport, and that usually costs me about 100. Well, I mean, this is years back too. I don't know what it is today, but 130 Canadian dollars for that hour drive. And to get a ride here from Huatulco to, say, Porto Angel, Porto Angel, is about half of that. I think 1,000 pesos or 900 pesos, so about 40
half
to
of it.
$50. So, you can, less expensive on the taxis, short rides and longer rides.
For sure.
So definitely taking a taxi is a great option. It's affordable and accessible way to get around. So you don't have to sweat it
Yeah.
as far as needing to have a car. What are some other options?
Well, there's collectivos.
Collectivo.
Very economical.
Yeah.
Like 10 to 30 pesos. It means collective in Spanish. So it's essentially an individual or a company or a community that privately owns a vehicle and helps the community get to and from where they want to go.
Yeah. So a collective, and is it also a collective of people like using them? Because collectivos can be a normal taxi, but they'll actually pick up multiple people going in the same direction.
Yes.
I think they just pay 10 pesos in most cases. So you might have 4 people in a taxi and they get out at different times, all go in the same direction.
Yep.
But then there's also collectivos I see on the highway, especially around some of the smaller communities. And they're often in the form of a truck. And then there's this box on the truck with shade and 2 benches on each side and a door, and people have to climb up in them, and that might hold 8 to 10 people in the back of the truck. There's also a collectivo.
Yep. And just same price, very cheap, very affordable.
10 pesos usually. And then there's also the vans we see on the highways, and I believe they're also called collectivos. And they're like a little...
Like a mini... kind
of a minivan or maybe a passenger van. So they'd hold maybe 9 to 11 people depending. But they're also looked at as a collectivo. So basically, a more affordable way to get longer distances, or not necessarily longer, I guess, but I see them more on the highways, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Or the main roadways.
Yep.
So that's an option.
Yep, buses.
Buses, of course, affordable way to get around.
Yeah, there's more like local in-town buses, the blue buses.
The municipal.
Or locally used, but again, very affordable, 10 to 13 pesos per ride.
I don't even know what a bus costs at home back in Canada.
I don't know. Yeah.
Whoops.
More than here.
Yeah.
Progresso has a cool bus system called Va-y-ven, go and come.
Okay.
And it's, again, really affordable. I think like 14 or 15 pesos, but that gets you around to
and
places.
That's locally within town.
Yes.
Within Progresso or within Huatulco.
But if you wanted to, let's say, take a trip to Oaxaca or go to Mexico City, or there's Adeo, which is probably, there's other bus lines, but Adeo would be the most popular just because they have tons of routes within Mexico. And I've taken one from Mexico City to different cities surrounding it, and it was a really good experience. You can do more economy where you're stopping at more locations, or upgrade a little bit and you get like a little snack and a drink and
it's a straight
Wi-Fi. It's a straight through, no stops.
And more of a luxury bus. You got air conditioning.
Yeah, but again, very affordable. Like I think to Oaxaca it would be about 580, 600 pesos for, a comfortable ride, good seating, and nice scenic drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I know between there's a couple different bus options between Huatulco and Puerto Escondido. It's about a 2-hour drive. I think there's one that stops in multiple places, and it's obviously takes longer and a little more affordable. But then I think it's the Adeo there too, which maybe $12 or something like that, and it's straight through, no stop.
Yeah, good options for sure.
So you can take the bus, a few different types of options to get around. What other options do people have if they don't want to own a car?
Well, some people do rent a car.
Right.
If you want a little more independence while you're here, to, maybe take a day trip and you want to do your own thing. There's really great car rental agencies run you, maybe 1,050, 1,100 pesos a day. But it gives you more independence to get around.
Got the freedom to come and go as you want, but you're not paying to own a vehicle. So, can be common. You can be down here for a month and rent it for a few days if you want to have that convenience, or longer. I think there's some tips to share too about renting cars. I always recommend getting a referral. I know we have some local companies that do a great job.
I lend you my car is
really take care of their people. Insurance is included, because that's one thing I think sometimes you have to be aware of with some companies. They quote you a price through the internet, and then you go to pay for it, and they kind of spring the insurance on you, which a lot of people are used to their credit cards covering the insurance.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Mexican companies demand you have to purchase the insurance, which is sometimes almost as much as renting the car alone.
It is.
So
that, or, a lot of, at least sometimes even in peak season, they may not have that vehicle for you when you arrive because, there's so many rentals out and it's busy season. So that car may have not gotten returns. We've had some instances where they haven't had the vehicle there, so they've had to wait a day or two into their vacation before
they made a reservation.
But we work with, good agencies that when they say they have a car, they're going to give you that car. And also, I feel like that was a Seinfeld episode. The reservation. But
oh yeah, what does the reservation mean if there's no car?
That's the reservation.
Yeah.
And what they quote you is what you're going to pay. So, right. It's very transparent. So, but it's a great option for sure.
Yeah. So read some reviews and get some referrals when renting a car. Yeah. We recommend.
People ask about Uber. We do not have Uber here in Huatulco or Puerto, but there is in Mazatlan and Merida.
Merida, Mexico City. The bigger cities usually have Uber.
Or Didi, which is similar to an Uber.
Didi as well.
But I believe it's more affordable than back in Canada and the United States to get around.
Yeah, definitely. Uber's a great option. Had some great rides. I often take Uber when I go to Mexico City. Mm-hmm. Actually, it happened to me. I will embarrassingly say I was quite tired from traveling, and I left my whole satchel with my credit cards, my money, my sunglasses in the back of an Uber.
Oh, no.
I managed to get my suitcase out of there, and I was sitting there. I had a lunch meeting, told the guy, don't worry, I'll buy lunch. So he takes off.
Oh, no.
And then I go to grab my satchel and realized it was in the Uber. So mad panic. I had to plead with the restaurant who, not like I'm in Huatulco, they didn't know who I was, and tell them I'm a good guy and I'm going to pay, but I don't have any money. So that was a lot of fun, and panicking, writing Uber through their app. And
I don't think you told me about this.
Oh, probably not. And in the end, I got my friend to buy a new Uber and get me to his house, and I was staying that night. And the Uber came to my friend's house later, like 3 hours later. I got my satchel back, and then I contacted the restaurant and paid my bill through transfer. And that was quite the negotiation I had. They were not very happy with me. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I got no money. And I didn't have my phone. Oh, no, my phone was dying. So it was quite the thing. So anyway, life, the adventures with Brent May, traveling.
And that satchel.
Yeah, and that satchel. It's not a man purse, it's a satchel, by the way. Anyway, so another positive experience. Like I say, the Mexican people are amazing that way. So Uber is a great option.
Yeah.
What else if you don't want to own a car? I guess a private driver. Mm-hmm. Maybe more so if you're going on a little bit of a tour, adventure. Sure. Mm-hmm. You get the luxury of not having to drive yourself, so you can pay attention to the scenery more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in some cities too, like Mexico City, they have like the e-bike rentals, which is nice. You can get around the area.
Yeah, never even thought about
outside.
E-bikes if you're climbing up the hills, or even pedal bikes.
Yeah. Here you can rent bikes too, bicycles and e-bikes.
Yeah, I've seen some beach bikes for rent, some e-bikes, mountain bikes.
Yep.
So different options there. So I think there's lots of options.
Affordable options and...
to get around. Yeah.
Makes it very easy to get around.
Much more affordable. You can not have the expense of owning a car, mechanic bills, insurance, and you can get around just fine in Mexico without owning a car. So this episode was very short and sweet. If you're liking our content, please go to the Mexico Living channel, hit subscribe, and hit the notification button so you get notified every time we upload a new video. We're really enjoying going through our process. I think this is episode number 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, episode number 5. So the third time I've had Erin on. So Erin, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge of getting around in Mexico without a car.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always great connecting with you here on the podcast. And from here, we're going to sign off. This is Made for Mexico, where we look TIM. This is Mexico, and we discover if you are made for Mexico. Today was how you can get around in Mexico without owning a car. And from here, we're going to sign off. I am Brett May.
And I'm Erin May.
Adios.